Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To get your own very copy of Qasas Al-Nabiyīn Part 1, Special Edition, which features extensive vocabulary, grammatical analysis, rhetorical elements, syntactical insights, Quranic linguistics, overview of verb patterns, diacritical mark reference tables, Hansware dictionary abbreviations, over 1000 word forms, then click in the link in the description below. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the series of Qasas Al-Nabiyīn covering the grammatical analysis to be found in the story. Inshallah, the idea is to read through the text of Qasas Al-Nabiyīn and apply the correct vowels at the ending of each word, and through explaining the grammatical rules or concepts to be found and why we read with certain vowels. If anybody is interested in purchasing this book, Qasas Al-Nabiyīn, with the full diacritical analysis, vocabulary, and even rhetorical points, then the link is provided in the description, inshallah, and from there you can purchase the book. So inshallah, let's get started. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We have here at the top, which is the main title. So the first word we have is man, and man means who. So it's used for questioning. It's ismu istifham. In Arabic grammar, it's known as ismu istifham. And it's a mabni word, so it's not going to change. It's going to remain as man. Next, we have the word kasara. Kasara means broke. So past tense verbs. Past tense verbs are also considered to be mabni as well. So they are not declinable. So how we see them, that's how they will be. It doesn't matter what comes before the past tense verb. It won't govern it. Contrary to, obviously, fi'lun mudari'un, which we'll cover inshallah later on. So kasara means broke. Next word we have is al-asnam, which means idols. Now, how are we going to read this word? Is it going to be al-asnama, mu, or mi? Well, let's look at what's come before it. Before it, we have a past tense verb, kasara, okay, which means broke. Okay, so kasara means broke. It's fi'lun madin ma'ruf, so that means it's in the active voice. And inside kasara is the pronoun, the fa'il, which is huwa, and refers back to man. Okay, that will leave al-asnam now to become the maf'ul bihi. Al-asnam will become the maf'ul bihi, and we know the maf'ul bihi will be mansub. Therefore, here we'll give you a fatha. So that's why we will read this as man kasara al-asnama, who broke the idols. Next we have is the word bائع, which means seller. And how we're going to read this, because it's just a title, there's nothing really governing it before. So if there's no governing agents, no awamil before it, it will be marfu. So bائع means seller. Now we are saying seller of the idols. So it's a possessive phrase. It's involved in idafa, so this will make the word al-asnam majroor. So mudaf ilayh. Therefore, we're going to give you a kasra. So bā'i'ul asnami, seller of the idols, or we can translate it as idol seller. Let's move on to our next word. We have this word qabl. Now, what is the ending going to be? Is it going to be qabla, lu, or li? Well, in Arabic, when we have adverbs of time or place, they will be also considered to be mansoob. So in this case, qabl is actually an adverb of time. When you say before, it refers to time. So it's maf'ul fih. By the way, these lessons probably will prove useful for those who have an understanding of grammar from before. Okay? Inshallah, this will be of beneficial for those viewers. Okay, so qabl, it's maf'ul fih, and maf'ul fih is one of the mansubat. So it's going to be mansub with a fatha, qabla. Remember, look, so here we don't have two fatha because it's involved in idafa. Qabla is one of those words that works with idafa. So there's no meaning of possession involved, but this is how these words operate. Okay, so that will make the next word mudaf ilayh. So ayyam is going to be mudaf ilayh, And mudaf ilayh is always majroor, so here we're going to give this a kasra. So qabla ayyamin. Okay. Next we have the word kathira. How we're going to read this word in terms of its ending, because i'rab is in relation to the ending of the words. So kathira is becoming the nat of the word ayyam, because when we say many days, this is known as mawsuf sifa or man'ut al-nat. So the nat is the adjective. So in this case, kathira is the adjective. It's the sifa, is the description of ayyam. So ayyam will be man'ut. So the word whose description is mentioned or who the adjective is referring to, in this case ayyam, that will be grammatically be known as man'ut. So nat follows man'ut in i'rab. That's one thing we need to understand. Nat follows man'ut in i'rab. So kathira is going to follow the i'rab of ayyam. So that's why we're going to say kathiratin. Okay. Now, if somebody argues the fact that man'ut and nat has to correspond in gender as well, so why do we see ayyam? It's obviously masculine. There's no sign of it being feminine, and kathira is feminine because got ta'un marbuta. So shouldn't it agree in gender? Well, that's a valid question. If you understand this rule, jam'un mukassarun, broken plural. What's a broken plural? When you change it from singular to plural, the singular form no longer remains. So the singular form of ayyam is yom. So when you change yom to ayyam, the form of yom no longer remains. Okay, the vowels change and the letters change as well. So that's known as broken plural. So ayyam is a broken plural. So whether we are bringing a nat of that broken plural word or a khabar, that will be treated as singular feminine, wahid muannath. So that's why we're saying kathiratin, as opposed to bringing the plural form of kathir, so kathair or something like that, or kathirat, because broken plurals are treated as singular feminine. So that's why we're saying kathiratin, okay, with a ta. Next, we have this word kathira. How we're going to read this and why. The main thing in these lessons is the bit where we say why, because this is where our actual Arabic grammar, translates from, from all that understanding that we've got from the grammar books is actually becoming practical now. Okay, so when we ask ourselves why, this is where we have to dig deep in our understanding of grammar and pick out the reasons why we're reading this in a particular way. So kathira here, why? Well, how are we going to read it? Well, we're going to read it with a kasra, so kathiratin, kasratain. And the reason being is because kathira, it's emphasizing the previous kathira. So in Arabic, just as the way we said nat follows man'ut in Arab, the word that emphasizes follows the word that has been emphasized. So this is known as ta'keed in Arabic grammar. And you've probably come across the term tawabi', those words which are indirectly governed. And there's 5 in total. We've covered 2 already so far. Na'at follows man'ut in Arab. The second one is ta'keed will follow mu'akkad in Arab. What's ta'keed? Ta'keed is the word that is emphasizing. So in this case, the second kathira. And mu'akkad is the word which has been emphasized, which is the first kathira. So ta'keed follows mu'akkad in Arab. So kathiratin, which is emphasis, and it'll follow the emphasized word, which is the previous kathira. So let's remember this. Ta'keed follows mu'akkad in Arab. Kathiratin is following the Arab of the previous kathiratin. Simple example, if somebody says Ja'a Zaydun, Zayd came, and you want to stress on the word Zayd, you just repeat the word Zayd again, but it'll have the same Arab. Ja'a Zaydun, Zaydun. Next, we have the word Jid, Jiddan. Okay, we can see that we're reading in Mansoob because of the alif that gave it away. Why are we reading this word Mansoob? Well, there's something called in grammar maf'ul mutlaq. Now, what's maf'ul mutlaq? Maf'ul mutlaq is actually a masdar, a root word. So, for example, we say Nasara yansuru. Nasara means he helped, yansuru means he's helping. Then we have nasran, which means to help. Now, maf'ul mutlaq is the masdar that comes to reinforce the meaning of the verb mentioned before. So, if simple terms, I say nasartu, I helped, but I want to emphasize the helping, the act of helping. So what would I do? I would just simply bring the masdar of that verb again, and it'll be mansoob. So nasartu nasran. That will mean I helped a lot, or however you want to translate it. However, we don't find jiddan, the verb, okay, that coincides with jiddan. We don't see mentioned before. So this is where we will say that the fail, the verb of jiddan, which is maf'ul mutlaq, is omitted from the text. However, we can't still take away the fact that jiddan is maf'ul mutlaq. So maf'ul mutlaq is a masdar that comes to reinforce the meaning of the verb mentioned before, and it will be mansoob. So that's why we're reading jiddan, like nasartu nasran. The only thing is here, the verb has not been mentioned. Let's move on to our next line. Kana means was, and we did say past tense verbs, they are mabni, so they're not going to change. So kana is going to remain as kana. Then we have fi. Huruf are also mabni as well. So far we know past tense verbs, mabni, they don't change. Like we learned in kasara. All particles are mabni, they don't be impacted by any governing words, if there are any governing words before the particle. So fi will remain always as fi, harfu jar. Then we have qarya, which is ismun majroor. So any noun that comes after harf jar will be in the state of jar. So it'll be qaryatin, fi qaryatin. Next, we have the word rajul, which means man. Now, what are we going to read? Rajulan, lin, or lun? Well, we can't read lan because there's no alif indicating it being in the state of nasb. So there's only two possibilities. One is majroor or marfu. Well, let's look at what's come before it. Before kana, well, after kana, we have a prepositional phrase. And we know kana has a noun, which is marfu, and a khabar, which will be mansoob. Okay, so simple example in Arabic we have kana Allahu ghafuran. Allah is oft forgiven. So kana has a ism. So Allah is the ism of kana, and ghafuran is the khabar. So what's happening here? We can't make fi qaryatin the ism of kana because fi is harf. So this will be khabar muqaddam fi qaryatin. That will leave rajul to become the ism of kana, but it's been delayed. Because it's been delayed, we'll say it's ism muakhar. So whatever the case, rajul is going to be marfu with dhamma because it's the ism of kana. The ism of kana is marfu, but here it's just been delayed. And why is there this delay? Well, there's a simple rule in Arabic. If the khabar, whether it's the khabar of kana or it's normal khabar, if it's a prepositional phrase and the mubtada, or whether you want to say the ism of kana, is nakiratun, is indefinite, then it's wajib, it's necessary to bring the khabar before the mubtada. So that's why here, kana fi qaryatin rajulun. In a village, there was a man. What would happen if you bring this rajul before the prepositional phrase and say kana rajulun fi qaryatin? That will mean a man who was in a village. So it'll be actually man'ut and nat if you were to bring the word rajul before fi qarya. In order for it to be khabar muqaddam, you have to delay the ism of kana. So rajulun. Kana fi qaryatin rajulun. That's why you have to delay, because otherwise it will be murakkab naqis, it won't be a complete sentence. So rajulun is marfu because the ism of kana, mashhur, which means famous. And how we're going to read this word mashhur, okay? We're going to read this word with a dhamma. Why? Because it's the nat of rajulun, famous man. Like we mentioned here, ayyamin kathiratin, it's following the i'rab, okay, of the nat, which is kathira, is following the i'rab of the man'ut, ayyam. Mashhur, which is the nat, is following the i'rab of rajulun, because nat follow the i'rab of man'ut. So rajulun mashhurun. So rajulun is marfu with the dhamma because the ism of kana, and mashhurun is with the dhamma because it's the nat of rajul. Jiddan we've already explained, so we don't need to go into this again. It's maf'ulun mutlaqun. It's mansub because it's maf'ul mutlaq. The fail of this maf'ul mutlaq, this masdar, has been omitted from the text. Next we have the word wa. So wa means and. It's a particle, so it won't change, so it's mabni. Kana is again mabni, so we're going to say wakana. Next word is ism, and this man's name. So ism here means name. So what is this going to be? Marfu, mansub, or majroor? Well, if kana is before it, it's going to become the ism of kana is going to be marfu. And the name hada means this. Okay, hada is mabni. Hada is mabni. Okay, so let's just change that. Okay, so hada is mabni. It's not going to change, so it will remain as hada. However, when we say wakana ismu hada, there's actually two words here, ism and hada. Name of this individual. Okay, name of this one. So hada is ismul ishara, is mabni, but it's experienced in the state of jar because it's the mudaf ilay of ism. That's why the word ism don't have tanween because it's mudaf. Hada is mudaf ilay, but we can't see the kasra on this word because it's mabni. Next we have is ar-rajul. Now what are we going to say? Ar-rajula, li or lo? Well, what's come before it? Hada. Now whenever you have ismul ishara and the next word has al, in terms of grammar, it will be actually badal and mubdal min. Now what's the concept of badal and mubdal min? Well, in simple terms, badal means substitute. Mubdal means substitute for. Like we mentioned, na'at follows man'ut in i'rab. We even mentioned ta'keed follows mu'akkad in i'rab. Now there's a third thing that follows the previous word in i'rab. That is badal, which is the second word, in this case ar-rajul, will follow the i'rab of the mubdal min, which is hada. Now what's badal and mubdal min? If you were to swap those two words around, it will be the same reference. The madlul will be the same. So for instance, if I say Ja al-imamu, the imam came, and then I say Zaydun, and Zayd's the imam. Zayd and imam, the reference is the same entity. So the second word, which is Zayd, will have the same i'rab as the first word, which is al-imam. So Ja'a al-imamu Zaydun. The imam came, Zayd. Reference is the same i'rab. So in this concept in grammar, the second word will be known as badal. So in this case, when we say ar-rajul, the man, it's the same entity when we say hada. So just for a moment, just think if the sentence was وَكَانَ اسْمُ هَذَا آزَرَ, and the name of this individual was Azar. So we haven't got the word rajul because it's already been mentioned before. Well, it's just been indicated to by using ismul ishara. The sentence will be valid. So you can relieve hada, remove ar-rajul. You can even remove hada and keep ar-rajul, and the reference will be the same. And say وَكَانَ اسْمُ الرَّجُلِ آزَرَ, and the man's name was Azar because the reference has already been made. So even if you have to remove ismul ishara hada and keep ar-rajul, it will be the same. You can swap it over. So that's what badal and mubdal min is in grammar. So ar-rajul li, why? Because ar-rajul is the same reference when we say the word hada. Now why with a kasra? Because remember hada, we said it was mudaf ilayh, and the name of this one, and this meaning the man. So because hada was mabni, it didn't express his i'rab, but however it still experienced the state of jar. So ar-rajul is following the jar state of hada because the badal of hada. Okay, so it's the badal of hada. That's why you're saying ar-rajuli wa kana ismu hada ar-rajuli. So this is another thing we understand. Badal will be the second word, and mubdal min. It's not mubaddal min, quite commonly mispronounced as mubaddal min. It's not from tabdil, it's from ibdal. Next we have the word azar. So how are we going to read this word? Azara, ru or ri. Well, let's look at, we had kana, we had the ism of kana, which was involved in a possessive phrase and also consists of badal mubdal min. That leaves azar now to become the khabar of kana. So if it's the khabar of kana, it's going to be mansoob. So it's going to be azara. Notice here we did not give you a tanween, so we did not say azaran. Why? Because this word is ghayr munsarif. Now there's two causes that need to be found for the word to be ghayr munsarif. Okay. One is that it's alam, it's a proper noun, and the second is it's ujma, it's a non-Arabic word. So that means this word will no longer can have tanween. So that's why it's got no tanween, and it's mansoob because there is a khabar of kana. Next we have wa, we've already done that. Kana, past tense verb, mabni is not going to change, so it's going to be wakana. This time we see the word azar again. But notice here, the position of azar here is coming after kana. So it's the ism of kana, so it's going to be marfu. In the previous one, it was mansoob. Azar in mansoob. Here it's marfu because it's the ism of kana. In the previous one, it was mansoob because the khabar of kana. And it's without tanween because غير munsarif. Yabi'u, which is fi'lun mudari'un. Okay, fi'lun mudari'un. So how are we going to read this? Yabi'u, because before the fi'l mudari, there is no huruf nasiba, there's no huruf jazima before it. So there's no allan kay idan, so it will be marfu. So that's why we're reading yabi'u. So Azar used to sell idols. So al-asnama is maf'ul bihi. It's what? Maf'ul bihi, and maf'ul bihi is mansoob. So that's why we're reading al-asnama. Wa kana Azaru yabi'u al-asnama. And Azar used to sell the idols. Now, someone might argue and say, well, if Azar is the ism of kana, and everything else is a khabar, and khabar is mansoob, why isn't yabi'u mansoob with the fatha, yabi'a? Well, we need to understand that the khabar is actually the whole sentence, yabi'u al-asnama, not the word yabi'u. So the sentence yabi'u al-asnama is fi mahalli nasb, and then the sentence yabi'u al-asnama becomes the khabar of kana, not the individual word yabi'u. Because in order for yabi'u to experience the state of nasb, it will have to have huruf nasiba before it. Okay, and we don't see that. So that's one thing to remember here. Yabi'u al-asnam, the sentence as a whole is acting as the khabar of kana, not the word yabi'u on its own. So what we've already done, kana, past tense verb, mabni, so it's going to remain the same. Fi means in, so it's harfu jar, it's mabni as well, so mabniyun ala sukun. Hadihi, okay, this is also mabni, so hadihi is going to be mabniyun ala al-kas. Okay, so it's going to end with a kasra, but it's still experiencing the state of the jar because of fi. Next, we have the word al-qarya, which means village, and in this village, so how are we going to read this? We're going to say al-qaryati. Same concept as hadha rajul. Ar-rajul was the badal, the substitute for hadha. Hadha was experiencing the state of jar, so ar-rajul will experience the state of jar. Here, same thing. Al-qaryati, which means the village or the town, is the badal of hadihi, and hadihi is experiencing the state of jar because of fi, so it's going to be majroor. That's why we're saying al-qaryati. Next, we got the word bayt. So how are we going to read this? Baytan, tun, or tin. Okay, so what we've got before, we've got kana, but we don't have the ism of kana mentioned directly. The prepositional phrase will form to become the khabar muqaddam. That will leave the word bayt to be the ism of kana. So it's going to be marfu with dhamma, baytun. But it's just been delayed. Next, we have the word kabir, which means big. So we're saying big house. So notice here, it's got the adjective. So the nat follows man'ut in i'rab. Kabirun is the nat, baytun will be the man'ut. So it's following in i'rab. Jiddan, we've already explained, it's maf'ul mutlaq, so it comes to emphasize. Wakana, wow is a particle, which means and. So that don't change. Wakana again. Fi means in, that's not going to change as well. Hadha, we did mention, and we said that Hadha can experience a state, but it don't express it. Okay, so wakana fi hadha, and then we got the word al-bayt. Now we should know now why we're saying al-bayti, because al-bayt in this house. If we were to remove the word hadha, it still will be valid. Wakana fil bayti asnam. in the house there were idols. Even if you was to remove the word al-bayt and say hada, reference to the house has already been made in baytun kabirun, and in this meaning pointing at the house there were idols. So you can substitute for each other. So the second word, which is al-bayt, is badal of hada, which is mubdal min. It'll follow the same i'rab. Notice here we're saying it follows the i'rab of hada, not necessarily the harakat. Because when we say na'at follows man'ut, it's not always has to follow in harakat. It just says that it follows it in the state. Because if you look at the harakat of hada, it ends with a sukoon. Al-bayt don't end with a sukoon, ends with a kasra. So when we say that na'at follows man'ut, or badal follows mubdal min, or ta'kid follows mu'akkad, it's in i'rab, not necessarily always harakat. Next we have the word asnam, which means idols. Now, asnam, how are we going to read this? Well, we got kana, we have the khabar which has come before, that will leave asnam to be the ism of kana, so it's going to be marfu, because the ism of kana is marfu. Wa kana fi hadha al-bayti asnamun. Next we have asnam again. Okay, now how we're going to read this asnam? We're going to read this marfu as well. Why? Because it's acting as the ta'kid of the previous asnam, and ta'kid follows mu'akkad in i'rab, like we mentioned, kathiratin, kathiratin. So asnamun, asnamun. Now we've got the word kathira here, so asnamun kathiratun. Here, why is kathiratun marfu? Well, it's simple because it's the nat of asnamun, and nat follows man'ut in i'rab. And we did mention that asnam, even though it's plural, okay, it's broken plural, because when you say Solomon to asnam, broken plurals are treated as singular feminine words. That's why the sifat is brought as singular feminine. Then we got the word jiddan, which is mansub because we mentioned it's maf'ul mutlaq. So, and in this house were idols, so many idols. So wa, which means and, the muriduna is mabni, it don't change. We got the word kana, past tense verb, it don't change. We got an-nas. How are we going to read this? Well, if kana is before it, the ism of kana is marfu, so we're going to say wa kana an-nasu. Now, when it comes to verbs, we got to know the verb patterns. So sajada yasjudu, so yasjuduna is in the plural form. We're gonna say yasjuduna, not yasjidina or yasjiduna or any other possibility, because from nasara yansuru, yasjuduna. Okay. So وكان الناس يسجدون. Now فعل مضارع here يسجدون. There's no huruf nasiba or jazima before it. That's why there's the retention of the noon i'rabi here, yasjuduna. Because had there been huruf nasiba or jazima, then the noon would have dropped off. For example, let's just say there was lan before it, it'd be lan yasjudu, or lam before it, it'd be lam yasjudu. But because there's no huruf nasiba jazima, the noon will be retained. Lam is harf jar, so they used to prostrate before these idols. The verb yasjuduna works with lam, so you don't have a direct object. Harf, lam is harf jar, so it's going to be with a kasra. Next we have the word hadihi. Okay, that's also mabni as well. So it's going to be mabniyun alal kasf. Okay. So we don't need to go into why we are reading it with a kasra, it's mabni. It stays like that. Next we have the word asnam. So this we'll be able to now figure out why we're saying asnami. Because asnam, when you have ismul ishara and you have the next word al, it actually falls into the tarkib of badal and mubdal min. So asnam is the badal of hadihi. So you can substitute for hadihi, it'll be the same reference point. So hadihi is in the state of jar because of the harf jar li. So that will make asnam, which is the badal following the i'rab of hadihi in the state of jar. So it's going to be al-asnami. Next we have wa, again, particle, so it's not going to change. Kana is not going to change. Wa kana. Azar, how we're going to read this? It's going to be marfu with a dhamma because the ism of kana. The ism of kana is marfu, the khabar is mansoob. So notice here as well, we're not saying that yasjuduna is mansoob, the verb, because the khabar of kana. The whole sentence, yasjuduna li hadhi al-asnam, will be in the state of nasb, not the verb. So وَكَانَ آزَرُ, even here we're not going to say yasjuda, we're going to say yasjudu. Even though everything after azar is going to be in the state of nasb because of the khabar, it's the sentence that is in the state of nasb, not the verb. So that's why we're not saying وَكَانَ آزَرُ يَسْجُدَ, we're saying yasjudu. Li, we've already done that before. حرف الجر مبني على الكسر. هذه, okay, so we just copy and paste that. It's going to be مبني على الكسر. And al-asnam is going to end with a kasra, like we mentioned before, because the badal of هذه. وَكَانَ آزَرُ يَسْجُدُ لِهَذِهِ الْأَصْنَامِ, and Azar used to prostrate to these idols. Next we have wa again, kana, past tense verb. So mabni, it's not going to change. Azar is the ism of kana, so it's going to be marfu with a dhamma. غير منصرف بضمة واحدة, because it's got two causes, which is alam and ujma. يعبد, abada يعبد. So when it comes to verbs, we've got to know the verb patterns. Okay, so there's no huruf al-nasiba or jazima before it, so it's going to be in the state of raf. That's why we're reading ya'budu. Hadihi, like we mentioned, okay, before, hadihi, it's here is experiencing the state of nasb, and Azar used to worship these. Because here, ya'budu is fi'lun mudari'un, and the fa'il is huwa, which refers back to Azar. This is what was being worshipped. So this is the object, maf'ul bihi of ya'budu. So remember here, hadihi is in the state of nasb. Why we're saying that? Because that will impact the badal which comes after, which is al-asnam. Okay, so we're going to say al-asnama here. Why? Because al-asnam is the badal of hadihi, is the substitute for hadihi. Badal follows mubdal min in i'rab. And what i'rab is hadihi experiencing? Nasb. Why? Because the maf'ul bihi of ya'budu. Okay, so alhamdulillah, this is the first story complete. If anybody wants to know the full diacritical explanation for every single word in all the stories in Qasas Al-Nabiyīn part 1, then they can purchase the book. Okay, the link will be inshallah provided in the description. In the book, not only would you get the full explanation of the diacritical markings, so I'll just run you through what's in the book, inshallah. So you actually have, in the book, you have abbreviations in Hansware. So all the abbreviations are mentioned. What does number 2 mean? It means bab taf'il. Number 3 is bab mufa'ala, fa'ala yufa'ilu mufa'alatan. Number 4 is bab ifa'al. So he has abbreviations in the Hansware dictionary. Just some terminologies which I've used in the vocab, which I'll explain a bit later on. So some verbs we see that there's sahih, mithal, ajwaf, naqis, containing, where depending on if they contain harf illa or they don't. So these are a bit of terminologies, verb patterns. So like I mentioned to you, you got to know which pattern the verb comes from. So all verb patterns are provided in the book as well, starting from the easy one, nasara, and then its sub patterns all the way, and they're actually interlinked with the Hansware abbreviations as well. So taf'il, saddaqa, yusaddiqu, tasdiq. In the Arabic Hansware dictionary, it won't actually give you the past, present, or masdar. It'll actually just say number 2. It'll expect you to not conjugate that into this pattern. So verb patterns, all the verb patterns are mentioned in the book. Then the grammatical moods. So when we say marfu, this word is marfu. These are the words that are marfu. When it says mansub, these are the words which are mansub. When you say majroor, these are the words which are majroor. When it comes to fa'il mudari, then these words will be majzoom. Fa'il mudari will be majzoom in this particular state. Then we have the diacritical analysis. When you run down each word in this particular state, this is the vowel marking you'll have. So comprehensive diacritical table is mentioned there. There's only 2 things that change. One is ismun mu'rab, and these are the words which are the asma'un mu'raba, which are provided in the book. The fa'il mudari is the second thing that changes, so there's a diacritical table for that. Okay, so this is the method that's been adopted in the book when we analyze. So here we have the first story done. There's a complete breakdown of the vocab you can find in the book, inshallah, and it mentions the huruf asliya for each word. So if you want to check in the dictionary, it's helpful to know how to check up words in the dictionary. So for example, if you have asnam, you don't jump into hamza, sad, nun. You'll have to look at the root letters, sad, nun, and mim. And that can be found when you go back to the singular form. Sometimes it's a bit difficult, it's challenging. You need to know a bit of sarf. So for example, here we have ba'i'un. To know the root letters, you'll have to probably put into the fa'il mudari form, yabi'u. So the ba, ya, ain comes out. So that's been provided. Past tense verbs, imperfect tense, the root letters are provided. The scale of the bab, which specific category, as-sahih, adwaf al-ya'i, etc., which have been mentioned before, the terminologies, the singular forms for each word, the plural forms, and also the meanings. And even the meanings, they are actually contextualized. So kasara yaksuru kasran is used with objects that's signified by the butterfly hat to break something. And then sometimes sajada yasjudu, for example, here you can't use a direct object, you have to use the lam. So these things are mentioned. And here's the full diacritical analysis, what I've just actually dictated and what I've mentioned orally. The whole complete breakdown of it is to be found here. So if somebody finds that the videos are, helpful to a certain degree, but you need something tangible to have in front of you, then when you purchase the book, inshallah, you'll have the complete breakdown of the whole story, the i'rab. And then as a bonus, there's balagha points mentioned, which I'm not even going into because the videos will become too long. Okay, and there's just also beneficial points mentioned as well. So, for example, we see here that here kana, why is kana known as naqisa? So it gives a reason because kana cannot be complete just with the marfu, it needs the mansub as well. So normally verbs you can just get away with the marfu, you can mention the fa'il, but with kana when it's naqisa, incomplete, it requires the marfu and the mansub, i.e. the ism and the khabar. So that's where the deficiency is. It's in need of another word. Okay, so these are rhetorical points of nah. Even tafsir points I've mentioned as well here. So Azar, who was Azar? ذهب المفسرون إلى أن آزر عم إبراهيم وليس أباه وقال آخرون إنه اسم للصنم والصحيح كما قال المحققون من المفسرين أنه اسم لوالد إبراهيم وقد دل على ذلك الكتاب والسنة. So there's beneficial points mentioned in this book as well. So like I mentioned, if anybody is interested in purchasing the book, the link is in the description. Inshallah, see you next time for story number 2. For now, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To deepen your understanding of the Arabic language, explore our range of courses, including Balagha, Arabic rhetoric, covering the 3 core disciplines of Arabic rhetoric. The i'rab course, which offers a comprehensive study of diacritical markings, and the Tarkib course, focusing on sentence structure and composition, along with many other enriching programs. To learn more, click the link in the description.